Check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2. Hopefully you can hear me okay. We still have another minute or so, but I always like to go live a little bit early to make sure that you can hear me okay. Check, 1, 2. So if you can, just throw a chat up and let me know that everything's okay. You can hear me okay. I'll get that out there so I can see you. There we go. Hey, everybody. Awesome. Thank you. All right. It looks like you can hear me. Okay, perfect. Of course, what we're going to be talking about today is ear training. I'm going to give you some basic things to think about. Hey, everybody. I'm going to give you some basic things to think about to try and help you a little bit with ear training. Now, just like everything else in guitar, these things that we talk about go far deeper than what I can do on, you know, a little live session like this. But I am going to try and help you as much as I can. And if you're interested in studying further, I actually have a guitar course called Ear Training Made Easy, and there will be a link in the description if it's not already there. It'll be there very soon, and you can check out more information on how to do this whole ear training thing. So today, hopefully, hey everybody, hopefully you've got a pencil and a piece of paper with you, and then of course your guitar. And I'm going to be asking you to do a few studies for me and see how you do, okay? So you want to have a pencil handy, you want to have a piece of paper, and your guitar if you have it. And we're going to just go through some different things. I'm going to give you some ideas of how I think about ear training in my head. And like I said, if you wind up really enjoying this, please share it with somebody or let somebody know about it. And then please check out Ear Training Made Easy. It's a great guitar course for learning how this ear training thing works. So thank you so much for being here, everybody. Again, I don't want to waste anybody's time, so we're going to jump right into this. So if you do have your guitar and a pencil and a piece of paper, or two of the three, that would be great, okay? Awesome. Looks like everybody's ready. So the first thing, there is going to be some talking here. There's more talking than playing when it comes to ear training, so I'm just warning you. Because there is. You got to learn to think about things, not just play, okay? So the first thing, there's 3 steps I'm going to go through, and really I'm going to give you 4 today to think about. So the first, if you don't have your guitar, don't worry about it, okay? Because as long as you listen to this, and of course you can watch this as many times as you want afterwards, you're going to be able to use these tools. So I'm going to break this down as much as I possibly can for you, okay? The first thing is, let's say we're all starting at the very beginning of ear training. So what we're not talking about is trying to figure out songs at 220 beats a minute, right? And we're not trying to figure out sweep arpeggios, and we're not trying to figure out Yngwie Malmsteen or Dream Theater solos, okay? That's further down the line. For most people, it's just how do you start putting this thing together to hear songs, to hear music. When I first started learning how to play guitar, which was back in the early 80s, in small town Fargo, there wasn't a lot of guitar teachers around. And so in order to learn how to play the songs that I enjoyed, you know, Def Leppard and Ozzy and Maiden and different things like that, I had to learn how to play by ear. Back then, of course, there was no internet. Guitar magazines were sparse at the time. There wasn't a lot of tablature. Tablature was just becoming popular at the time with books and things like that. So let's just get to this, okay, and show you kind of what I think about. The first thing for you is, and please understand this anytime you practice guitar anyway, choose the right songs. Choose the right song for what you're trying to learn how to do. We all want to be good at guitar playing, okay? We all want to be fast. We all want to be smart. We all want to play musically. Of course we do. But if we set ourselves up for failure before we ever begin by choosing things that are just too difficult for our wheelhouse at this point today, the problem is that it frustrates us too much, okay? And we're setting ourselves again up for failure because we're trying something that's just a lot harder than it needs to be. So the most important thing I'm begging you when it comes to your guitar playing is choose things that are in your wheelhouse, so to speak, in your framework, okay? Choose the right songs. And let me show you what I mean by that. Let's say we wanted to figure out the chord progression to a song. Now, what we would probably want to do if we've never done this before, and I am going to have a couple of examples for you as well today, we would probably want to choose a song that doesn't seem way too fast, and it doesn't seem like it has way too many chord changes. Okay, that's the first place to kind of start. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and then hopefully after this, you'll check out Ear Training Made Easy, and you'll also take a look at some other songs that are kind of the same, in the same realm with what I'm talking about here. So, if we were to choose a song that has, it seems like anyway, it's a moderate tempo, and it doesn't seem like it's got way too many chord changes. Okay, so that's step one. Okay, let me play you a little bit of a song. Let me show you. Okay, this is a song by an old school band called the Bodines, if anybody's ever heard of the Bodines. Okay, and I just want to play a little bit for you. Okay, so just a little bit of what's going on there. So this song doesn't seem way too fast. This song is called Feed the Fire. Now again, I don't expect you to go learn this song. I'm just using it as an example, okay? It's called Feed the Fire by the Bodines. Here's what I want you to think about. When we first, so the first tip to this is choosing the right song, okay? Trying to find songs that fit where you're at in your playing. The second step is what I want to talk about right now, which is called learning to listen. And I refer to this as mapping. Now, let me kind of explain this to you. If I'm driving in my car and I hear a song come on the radio, immediately my brain starts trying to figure out how parts go within the song. It's a blessing or a curse, depending on how you look at it. It's just the way it is. So I can't listen to music when I try and go to sleep because I sit there and I think about it the whole time. So when I'm listening to a song, I'm trying to map out how I think the song goes. So let me explain this to you a little bit, okay? It looks like some people like the Bodines. This is awesome. So I think of mapping as like a map. I'm literally trying to visualize this song. And there's two ways to visualize this. One is from a bird's eye view. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus, all these things that we talk about, right? If I wanted to learn how to play a song by ear, or if I even wanted to memorize a song to play with other musicians or in a band or whatever it might be, I would need to map this song out to know how it goes, right? I mean, if you've learned songs before, you know what I'm talking about. You have to know how the song goes from beginning to end. And then you get together with your band and you rehearse it and everything like that. That's what mapping is. Now, when you're learning songs by ear, this bird's eye view doesn't do us a lot of good. What we need to do is we need to zone in, we need to zoom in on a particular part, okay? And I'm gonna call these parts blocks. I'm gonna call them blocks. They're just pieces to the song. Now, traditionally we think of a piece as like a verse. Well, we're gonna zoom in even further than that. We're gonna zoom in as far as we can go and start hearing something that sounds like it's by itself or it's in a group with other chords. Okay, now remember, we're talking about chords right now. So if I zoom in far enough, let me show you this. If I zoom in far enough, this is what I get. Okay, just listen. I get one chord. I get one chord, that chord right there. Now, that chord, along with other chords, every chord, so to speak, has a color. It has a sound, and we'll call that sound a color. E has a sound or a color. D has a sound or a color. A has a sound or a color. They're all a little different from each other. If you think about it, when I play E on the guitar, it's got this kind of low, full sound. D is a little bit smaller, right? It's a little bit thinner. A, now, again, I'm not telling you that you need to identify every chord right now. I'm just telling you, do you agree that each chord has its own kind of sound? You know, E for me is this big, wide sound. D is a little bit smaller. So, hey everybody, so each chord has a distinct kind of color to it. Now, we are not talking about perfect pitch, okay? So I'm not, you know, gonna play something and then, or on the piano and you have to go, oh, it's an E minor, flat 9, sharp 11. That's not what I'm asking. I don't have perfect pitch. I have relative pitch. I can hear chords connecting. And I can hear the sound of certain chords because I've played for a long time, okay? So learning to kind of hear the difference in tonality of some of these really common chords that we play as guitar players, and we know that they play as band members, right? So as we're listening to this block, what we're listening for is some sort of sound that we hear. Now, we know that that sound is more than likely going to switch to another color, another chord. So this is where I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and I'm going to try and hear a block of repetition, which is generally a measure, but sometimes it can be longer, sometimes it can be shorter. But let me show you what I mean. So that first chord that I'm hearing, and I don't want to give it away yet, so I'm not really talking about the chords just yet, but hold on a second. So now listen with me. Okay, so if you can hear that, what you're hearing are, well, and again, because we don't have a lot of time, I can't go really deep into this, so I'm going to give you some of these answers, but there are 3 different colors that we're hearing. We're hearing this really big low sound, and then it's moving, and then it's moving, and then it's going back to this really big low sound again. Let me play it for you again and see if you can hear what I'm hearing. Now again, we haven't given definition to these chords yet if you've never done this before, right? Okay, so there's 2 things happening here. Number 1 is we want to identify those chords, right? Because that's what ear training is, but it's far more than that. Number 2 is we want to be able to take this block that we're building and understand that it's going to get repeated over and over and over. And equally as important is identifying when it doesn't get repeated, when things change, okay? So now, if we zoom out just a little bit, we know we've got this block that has 3 different sounds in it. Does that make sense? Let's now see how many times we do it before we hear something else. Did you hear that? Right on the 5th one, something changed. It didn't go back to that big deep sound. It went somewhere else. So the cool thing about learning how to map, okay, is that you're able to go from bird's eye view and see all of these different things here, right? Verse, bridge, chorus, all this different stuff. When you zoom way in, you can actually start hearing the difference in chords as they change. Now again, we haven't defined what these chords are. I know some of you have given me some answers, and thank you for that. But we'll get there in just a second here. And then the next thing is that we're hearing the repetition of this same part over and over and over until something else happens. Something new happens. So here's what I always tell people is don't worry about the part where something else happens. Turn it off before you ever get there. Okay? So now you've got 4 measures of the same thing over and over and over to work on. And the best to do is zoom into that very first chord and try and figure out what that chord is. Now, if we're in relatively similar time, I don't know how much of a delay there is, tell me what you think that main first chord is. Just blurt it out to me, anybody out there. Tell me what that primary main first chord is. Right here. What is that chord? Okay. What do you think it is? Okay. And what you got to do, now I'm not cheating on you. You're just doing open chords right now. I'm not giving you anything that uses any weird chords. Just plain old chords are what we're looking for here. Okay? So we have lots of different answers here. Okay? And that's cool. Don't worry if you're right or wrong. That isn't what this is about. It's about learning how to hear. Okay? That first chord, let me play it for you here. Okay? So the first chord is E. Okay? The first chord is E. Now, I see somebody up there that said E minor, and thank you for that, because that's the next thing we got to talk about. When you're trying to figure out something by ear, okay, as a guitar player, you know that you've got a couple of battles here. Number 1 is learning how to map, learning how to zoom in and just take one piece. if you think back when I was a kid and I had a record player, because that's exactly what I had, I would listen to the beginning of a song, and then just like you're doing right now, and then I have to lift the needle. And then I have to put it back and listen and lift the needle. And then put it back and listen and lift the needle. And then I'd set it down and I'd go to my guitar and I'd start trying to figure out what those chords are. Now, understand the difference. If I'm trying to figure out in real time, and the song just keeps playing and playing, and the parts are changing and the chords are changing, it's very easy to get lost and feel like you can't ear train. But if you just take one chord or a block that gets repeated, and you just stop there and have that sound playing in your head, have that color playing in your head, and then go to your guitar. For those of you that did not answer E, go back and try E. Are you ready? You'll hear the drum fill and then we'll hit E. Are you ready? Whoop. That was a little too close. Okay, if you have your guitar, get ready on E. Here we go. Okay? So once you figured out E, then you've got to figure out what might be around it. Like, what are some other chords that are common that get played with E, right? Now, it's not an exact science. This stuff takes a while, but it gets easier as you go. Now, this song intentionally uses all open chords, which is why I'm giving you this right now, okay? So you listen to it, you stop it, and again, yeah, if you have a looper or something, you could use a looper and just keep playing it. What I'm saying is, don't try and do too much. It's like trying to memorize an entire chapter in a book, right? So you just read through the entire chapter and then you go back and read it again. There's no way you're going to memorize it. You know, if you want to memorize something, you have to take a little chunk, just little bits at a time, and just memorize each part and then start putting them together. That's how I learn songs, and I'm not bragging. I can learn songs fairly quickly. I'm not saying they're not a challenge technically. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying learning how a mapped idea of a song is a relatively quick thing for me to do because my brain understands how to break this down, just like I'm explaining it to you right now. Okay? So you just work with it a little bit. Now, somebody said, I still hear G. That's okay. It's going to take some time for some people. It takes a little while just to learn how to hear that sound or that color and let it kind of permeate your brain with the chord that you're trying to play. So I'm just going to say this one more time so everybody understands. Even though we know there's a block, and that block contains 3 different colors or 3 different chords, okay? There can be more chord changes, but there's 3 different sounds within this block. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're ready to try all 3 of them. Some of you are, okay? But some of you are not. You just start with one sound from that block. You're aware from a mapping perspective that there's 3 different sounds, but you just start with one. And now, if we go to the next one, the next chord that follows it, okay, now in my head, it's E, D, A, and that's what it is. I'm not trying to ruin the surprise for you, but that's what it is. I can hear the D because it's thinner, and then I can hear it go to A in between because the E is so low, and the D is way up here, and then the A's in the middle. So you got... Okay? And that's what it is. Now let me get you to the part where it changes, okay? So remember we said it goes through 4 times and then something else happens? Try and hear and tell me, what is that change? What chord do we hear all of a sudden? So listen. Here's your E, D, A. D, A, E. D, A. Now listen, right here, listen. Did you hear it go back up? Did you hear the sound kind of go back up again? And if it goes back up, what do you think that chord's going to be? Is it an entirely new color? Or is it a color that we've already played before? Because we know it didn't go to the low one, it didn't go to E, so what else is it going to go to? What do you think? D, thank you. That's right. Okay, so that's where the beginnings of this start with ear training, is learning how to map. Seeing the big picture is wonderful, okay? Zooming in and grabbing this one chord, but then being able to zoom out and grab a block. Yeah, you guys are right, D, okay? you grab a block, okay? So the block is, now watch. You see? So the trick is, I told you number one is that you try and choose the right song. Well, that's not always easy to do because you don't know what the song has to offer. But if you know the band traditionally uses open chords or something like that, like let's say you were doing, you know, I don't know. I mean, it could be anybody, Neil Young or Bob Dylan or somebody or the Eagles or whatever. And I'm not saying they don't use bar chords or stuff because they do. So here's the next issue that you have to deal with before we move on to number two. And I'm going to make this quick because I don't want to waste your time here, okay? That chords are major or minor. But that can kind of be worked out as you continue doing this. One of the things that you should really try and do if you've never done it before is spend some quality time hearing the difference between majors and minors. Don't go too far into the susses and all that kind of stuff right now, but just basic minor and major sounds, like how a minor chord will always have more of this that kind of darker sound, where if you're rocking out, it's probably major, right? So if you're playing like AC/DC, you're playing major 90% of the time because it's this rock and roll thing, okay? So it takes some time, okay? You just got to be patient with it. So the third thing is we've got these colors. The second thing is we've got quality to the color, which is major or minor, which can be a little confusing. The third thing that can be even more confusing is the movement, okay? Sometimes you're on power chords, sometimes you're playing bar chords, sometimes you're playing open chords, okay? What if you don't know? What if you don't know if the song is open chords or power chords or bar chords? Here's a wonderful trick to do is just convert everything into a power chord to begin with if you are completely lost. And let me explain why. E or A or D or C or G all exist as power chords. E or A or D or C or G are all power chords. And what happens with a power chord is we're able to remove the major-minor confusion if we're having a problem. We don't even play major and minor. We'll get to it. It's a second step. So we could play any song that you want to learn how to play exists chordally somewhere between 0 and 12. It just does. I mean, yes, there's octaves and things, but the chords are between 0 and 12. Okay? So that's the big thing is, and let me show you what I mean. Now I'm going to play another song for you, and what I want you to hear now in this song is that you're going to hear this motion moving this direction. Okay? Moving this direction across your guitar. Okay? So you ready? Here we go. Okay, so if you were just learning how to play this song, like this is a perfect song that I like to use with students who have never done this before. Because again, the same rule is applying. You're going to start with a block. Now how many sounds, how many colors are you hearing in this block? Right? As I play this, how many sounds are you hearing before the repetition begins? You see? So the trick is now we do the same thing we did with the Bodines tune. This song is called Mother by Danzig if you don't know it. So this one, we got to figure out what that first chord is to be able to figure out what everything else is. So we zoom in and we figure out what that first sound is. Even if you just play that first sound. Whoops, sorry. There we go. So I rewind it. That right there. So we're thinking. I'm acting like I don't know it, right? So that first chord is B, 7th fret. It's 7th fret. Now, if you have your guitar, head on up to that B, the 7th fret, okay? Head on up there, and that's your B, okay? Now, again, if you're still trying to figure it out, please understand, I have a limited amount of time, and I don't want to waste your time. So we've got to be there. Now, if you think about it, if you listen to the movement of the next two chords that make up this block, where does it go? Okay? Do you hear how it's moving? It's starting and it's going down, and then it's coming up, and then it's starting, and then it's going down, it's coming back up, it's starting, okay? Yeah, so you're going B, G, A, B. Now, some of you might play the G differently. You might play G as a G, you know, beginning of a G, or B with a G on top. There's a million ways you could do it. My point is, that's irrelevant. I don't get into this whole argument of, well, you know, the guitar player, just play it, have some fun, right? I mean, worry about the details, the stronger details further down the line. If you really care about that song that much, I think that's great. I am always more concerned with your personal success as a guitar player and that you're having fun along the way. Whether or not you do something exactly perfect as it was recorded in the studio, I could care less. Okay? Danzig isn't calling me every day to know how I'm playing this song anyway. He doesn't care, right? I just want to have some fun doing my thing, and I want you to do the same thing. If you love this song a ton and you really want to do it exactly the way he's doing it, I think that's great. But if you don't, I think that's fine too. So don't worry about that kind of stuff, okay? So you've got this right there, okay? So that's what we've got going. Now I'm going to show you one last one. I'm going to let you go.